Coach, between yourself and Nick Saban, you've won 6 national titles in your career. How would you describe your relationship with Coach Saban over the years?
Good. I can't say we're that close. You know, we've known each other. You know, I'm trying to think. We spent some time together at television. I can't remember what it was. I think a national championship game. Both of us. It might have been the year off I took, and he wasn't in it, and so we spent some time together. Our family's got a wonderful wife, Terry, and her and Shelley get along great. So, the one thing that we have done is we've always, whether it be the SEC meetings or just conversations, that whether it be the agent-player issue that that you have to deal with, the fact that players, you know, we're both very player-oriented coaches about the welfare of players and the welfare of the game. So that's more our conversation, is very professional. But I think there's a lot of mutual respect there.
Front row.
Coach, can you talk about what Ezekiel Elliott has done or given you this season?
Ezekiel is a great player. You know, he's a guy that, a highly recruited guy that comes from a wonderful family, and just probably as good a work ethic tailback as we've ever had. And he's that's contagious throughout our program. There's a young man named Curtis Samuel that also has developed that same work ethic because he watches Zeke do it every day. But he's a tough, rugged guy that also has the breakaway speed. So he's a extremely valuable member of our team, and he's a great back. Now, you know, I don't know if he's gotten the recognition because of whatever, but he's I think a 1,300-yard rusher, and in the first 2 games are very, you know, Virginia Tech, we didn't play well, and Navy, he didn't get the yards for some reason, but he's a 1,500-yard back, and he's real valuable, and he's better. Tom Herman said it, and that's true. He's the best back I've ever seen without the ball, as far as effort down the field, making cuts, making blocks, pass protection. He takes great pride in his being a great player. He also was I kind of backed off special teams a little bit, but he was a very valuable member of our kickoff team and punt team in the past too.
Staying on the front row.
Urban, I think you've got 12 or 13 people who have coached under you and now have been head coaches. How much pride do you take in that, and how would you describe your evolution as a head coach yourself and things you try to do?
Well, real proud of them. Still very close with all of them. You know, Dan Mullen, I think, has done a fabulous job at Mississippi State. Coach Strong at Texas. You know, Gary Anderson and Kyle Whittingham, Tim Beckman. You have Dan McCarney at North Texas. You have Doc Holliday, who had a brilliant year at Marshall. So very proud of them. We stay in contact, and you know, I just think it's great that you know, I've never had an offense coordinator stay more than 2 or 3 years, and the 5th one is now a head coach, and Tom Herman's ready to go be a head coach, and you know, last night we had a little toast to him and his wife, and very proud. He'll do a great job down there.
Second row, right.
Coach, a couple of things. First of all, Coach Saban was retelling the story about you calling and talking to his wife, I guess in '89 or '90.
Calling his wife?
Yeah, so did you talk to when you were a graduate assistant? No.
That didn't come out right.
No, it didn't. Let me try that again.
Oh, you mean like back in what you said?
Like, I think it was when he got the job at Toledo. Yeah. Do you remember that at all?
Yeah, I was at, I believe, Illinois State, making $6,000 a year and making the decision either to stay in or out. I'm actually born in Toledo, Ohio, and I made a run, and somehow I either called his home or something, and I talked to Terry, and that was a long time ago. I had to be like 21 years old or something like that, and had a great conversation, and nothing obviously materialized with it. But
how might history have been changed if he said he regrets now not calling you back and considering you for his staff?
He said that he regrets it?
Yeah,
I'm sure he does.
Big mistake.
I'm sure that's on his mind right now. Yeah.
Front row, go ahead.
Urban, what have you, the way that Lane's used Amari the last month specifically, very similar to the way that Sammy Watkins was used at Clemson and you obviously in the bowl game. Sense of deja vu, and what do you see the way that Kiffin is using him compared to the way Watkins?
Well, we had one of those. His name was Percy Harvin, and you'd move him around, and because if you keep a guy stationary, there's ways to put 2 people on him, and I think he's done a great job with that. You know, you get a checker, or puzzle piece like that, you got to take full advantage. He's a great player, and I understand he's a great young man too. So you just got to know where he's at, and we've done our coaches. You're not going to stop a guy like that. You just have to know where he's at and get him on the ground. But they do a good job because it'd be a mistake just to put him at boundary 1 or field 2 all the time, because you can stop the guy if you know where he's at. Well, not stop him, but at least contain him. That's probably challenge number 1. And the other thing that they have those 2 good backs. When you take 2 players to stop 1, that's leaving something else open, and that's what every offense is looking for. When you have that checker, and you can take 2 out, and now you have 9 left. That's that whole part of the game, that chess match between the 2 coordinators. No, don't do what we did. We're better though. We're more equipped. Chris Ash has done a very nice job, and obviously it's the players, but we're very systematic on the back end right now, and that's going to be key to where he's at.
Coach will cross the aisle, stay on the front row.
Obviously, Thursday's game is big for your program and what you're building, but how important is it also for the Big Ten, which has been fighting the perception issue all season, for a win and just moving forward?
Well, at first my reaction is that's none of our business, but it is our business, and it is big. But that doesn't change if we're going to practice a little harder today for the Big Ten. We're responsible for Ohio State, but it is important, as is every bowl game. There's one way to change perception, not talk about it. Go play very well, recruit very well, play very well, and perception has changed. And I go back to 06 when the Big Ten came top of them. So it's all football. The Pac-12 is great football. You got Big 12, ACC's won a championship, and there's a team in Florida State hasn't lost a game in 2 years. So I think it's a great conversation. I think there's a lot of truth to it. But the Big Ten, this is a great opportunity not just for Ohio State, but all the bowl teams to do very well.
Staying on the same row to the far left.
Urban, you mentioned when you first got here how this bowl trip has just had a completely different feel because it's the playoff. Now that you've been here a few days, what has that been like, managing bowl week activities and obviously preparing for the playoff semifinal?
Well, good thing about the Sugar Bowl, they don't wear you out. There's certain bowls that you just get your tail kicked in because you go do this, go do this, go do this. The Sugar Bowl this is our second time here, and they're great. It is a different feel. And we had a nice dinner with the Sugar Bowl people last night. We actually toasted them, and I did, because this is the Sugar Bowl. Traditionally, as good a bowl as there is in college football history. And I want our players to, yes, it is the playoff, but I'm glad that there's still the feel of the Sugar Bowl. And our staff and I've tried to do a good job, make sure our players appreciate the Sugar Bowl. But it is a much different feel, Stuart, than this is it, because it's not it. Everybody knows there's something left.
Second row, go ahead.
Urban, how would you rate Curtis Samuel's freshman year? I mean, for a true freshman from Brooklyn.
What a future he's got. He's one of my favorite players. He's just a good student, great kid from Brooklyn, New York. That, maybe traditionally there's, that football's getting better in that area of New York City, and I think he can do a lot of things for us. He's a good special teams player for us, kick returner now and on kickoff, and then obviously he scored 2 touchdowns in the Big Ten championship game. Buy some stock in that one, because he's a very multiple player and a great person.
The meeting where you had with Cardale, where he was right there on the ropes of maybe not being here much longer or sticking with it. What do you remember from that meeting, and how quickly did he respond?
Well, I remember that Teddy Ginn is one of my close friends. He was his mentor. Cardale's had it's probably well documented that it wasn't easy life, and I've seen it. After almost 30 years of doing this, that you want to see a kid get screwed up, have misalignment between the guardian, parent, and the high school coach, and you see it all the time. I'm going to transfer. I'm going to quit. I'm going to do this, and it's not the 18-year-old kid, because all 18-year-olds are knuckleheads, and that's. I was more of a knucklehead than Cardale Jones, but I had alignment of people around me saying this is the way it's got to be done. So I credit her name's Michelle. I credit Ted Ginn and Tom Herman And our strength coach is Coach Marati, very involved, and there was no breathing room. But all that his guardian had to say, or all that his high school coach had to say is, well, I'm not sure they're treating you right, and it would be a statistic instead of a young man that's going to get his degree from Ohio State and he got an MVP trophy from the Big Ten Championship. But that's all of us. I mean, that's the thing that's so great about coaching. That's why I love college football, is that you have an opportunity to impact people, because that he's been impacted by the Ohio State University in a very positive way. No, he was, but once again, he doesn't matter. You know, all it had to do was that person sitting next to him start shaking their head and say, no, that coach is screwing you, or no. Because I've been in those meetings too, and I'm thinking, good gosh, this one's going to end real bad. Not because of the kid. The kid's a kid. It's because the knucklehead sitting next to the kid. And the good thing that that kid had is very good support. Ted Ginn's, whatever everybody has opinions about everybody, Ted Ginn's a man's man now, and he really had his hands on this one, and there was no choice. There was no choice. And then Michelle was phenomenal, and she took this guy in that, unfortunately, once again, it would be some really bad statistic right now out there.
Back across the aisle.
How do you think Jim Harbaugh going to Michigan changes the dynamic of the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry?
I think remains to be seen. I don't know. Obviously, that's big for our rival. It remains to be seen. I think obviously we got to worry about Ohio State and recruit and take care of our business and probably intensify the rivalry a little bit. But it's not exactly been non-intense the last few years. So remains to be seen.
Left side, third row. Les.
Urban, y'all had a lot of true freshmen have an impact this year. Two things. Are you finding more high school seniors ready to play sooner than in the past? And is it more important to find those guys because guys tend to move on a little more quickly?
Yeah, we made that decision. Pete Carroll I was watching USC years ago, and I remember him making the comment, we don't redshirt. And I watched the way they recruit. This is when they were really loaded up with players, and so we made we started down there saying there's no more we don't redshirt here at Ohio State. If you're not good enough, you won't play. But we don't save them for down the road, because the good, I shouldn't say the good ones, but the great ones, you don't get 5 years now. It's the days have changed, and so we don't recruit to redshirt, and we don't actually use that term. If you don't, we're not going to blow a season on you, but we're certainly not saving you. And the one guy that I look back now, Sam Hubbard's that guy that he just developed so fast, and so we did save him. But normally, if it's injury or you're not good enough, you won't play. But we go out and recruit guys that, 2 years ago, like Darren Lee, Eli Apple, Garyon Conley. Those are just examples. We should have played them. They weren't quite mature enough, and I look back and there's so much pressure I put on coaches now to get them ready to play. When I hear they don't know the defense, then that's on that coach. They better learn the defense. And so we try to get them ready to play as fast as we can.
Other questions for Coach Meyer? Got a couple here on the right side. Let's start front row. Chuck.
Yeah, I've read comments of yours before that you do seem concerned that as this sport gets bigger and bigger with this playoff and so on, that students remain part of the stadium experience. And I was wondering where you think that stands now, if you worry that we might lose sight of them somehow, and if we need to keep it in mind, in your opinion.
Great question, and we don't get enough of that. At Ohio State, that's not a problem, because we work extremely. Our athletic director, I talk to him every year. How do we make boosters are boosters and fans are fans, and no disrespect to them, but go ahead and take students out of the stadium and see what that looks like. And so we have, we do special things just for our students. We have student day at Ohio State. We have what do you call them? When you go visit with the students. Then also before a game, we call them quick cals with our students. We send videos to our students. We are constantly thanking them, and the minute you take advantage of a student, you're going to have that problem. And right now we have the number one, 29,000 season tickets, most ever. And we're not going to take them for granted. And so that is a problem, though. At Utah, we started the MUS And that was now one of the best student organizations, and Coach Whittingham's done a brilliant job. Just don't ever forget about the students. I'm glad you asked that. It gets lost a little bit in this whole equation. I think that's each school. Nationally, you can't. Each school and I think each coach has a responsibility. Each AD has a responsibility to go out and make sure the students are part of the equation. Big part.
Second row.
Coach Meyer, do you ever feel like does there ever a point when you're fully satisfied? You see, you and Coach Saban seem to have that, and I'm sure all great coaches in any industry, you're always kind of striving for that perfection, and you never quite get there. Do you ever feel like you're close to there, to that point? And also, Coach Fickle was talking yesterday about your motivational methods and how you like to. He said, as many days you leave the office and you're angry, and it fires you up to come back and try to do a better job the next day. Can you just kind of discuss, too, how you sort of try to...
The first question was what?
Do you ever feel like fully satisfied?
That's. I think the older I get, you'd learn to appreciate. Not satisfied is probably not the word, but you learn to appreciate it a little bit. Yesterday I caught myself and I try to force myself. I was watching practice, watching a very good team in the Sugar Bowl, getting ready to play in the history, first college football playoff, and I try to share that with our players. So that's certainly not satisfied, but you try to appreciate the moment. That's something maybe when you're younger you don't do that because you're always swinging. The second one, the motivation. Yeah, I think that's our job, to keep pushing as hard as you can. Complacency is probably I can think of some bad words, but complacency falls right up there with some of those bad words. And that's the leader's job. There's no complacency. And if I see it or feel it, or, you got to poke the tiger and make sure that you're very, I don't want to say discomfort, but discomfort usually breeds production. And I don't want guys, feeling like they have arrived, because we have not arrived. 59-0's a long time ago. We got to move on. And that's why, coaching at Ohio State might not be for everybody. Playing at Ohio State might not be for everybody. But if you want to be a champion and you want to get pushed and you want to get grinded, it's pretty good if you enjoy that kind of atmosphere.
Coach will stay on the right side, front row. Go ahead.
Urban, not to ask another Harbaugh question and not to ask another Toledo question, but as you guys kind of go forward next year, I imagine there will kind of be a lot of maybe cheesy questions about this coaching matchup being a matter of fate. You guys were born in the same Toledo hospital within 6 months of each other. I don't really know the question, but how crazy is that to you?
Until that's the first time I heard that. I don't even know what hospital it was. Mercy. It's not there anymore, right? Yeah. Probably ironic is the word. I'm not sure.
Right. No, I didn't know what the response.
Other questions for Coach Meyer? Got one in the back here on the left.
Coach Meyer, to build upon the redshirt recruit you're going to play here if you're good enough, what sort of role is Raekwon McMillan? He's not started a game, but he has played in all the games. So what kind of dimension does he bring to the field and off the field in the locker room? That's
the challenge that I present to our staff all the time. Go find another one of those. He's also over a 3-point student. He handles his business. Will be a captain, I predict, at Ohio State. Wonderful family that maybe took a leap of faith to leave Georgia to come play for, Ohio State, a little bit further away. And he's, just flourishing in everything that he does. He's a guy that walks in this room and walked in the locker room, and there's instant respect because of the way he handles his business. So he starts on punt right now for us as a true freshman, which that doesn't ever happen very often, at a very key spot. Does play, he's over half the snaps, I want to say, at middle, or close to half the snaps at middle linebacker at Ohio State. So, yeah, he's another one. You want to go invest a little in the future of a player and person. He's the guy you go recruit.
Staying on the left side, but back up here to the front row.
Urban, when you guys beat Ohio State a few years ago, Jim Delaney made a big deal about all the junior college kids in the SEC and none in the Big Ten. Very few. I think you have 2. Is that something that's going to get addressed with autonomy to try to, all the JC kids down here, up there, you don't have that kind of advantage?
Well, Florida, we didn't have junior college player. Maybe one or two. I don't. I don't know. I think each program's different. I don't. Commissioner Delaney, that's his prerogative to make whatever comments. I don't blanket statements. I mean, you'll never hear those from me because I don't know each program's situation. But that's program specific. There's been some programs that have built great programs, junior college players. There's nothing wrong with that. We like to have them around for 4 years and develop them. But I forget the question. But I'm not sure. That has no bearing on the way we do our business. Oh, I don't even know who recruits junior college guys or not. I really don't.
Staying on the front row, in the middle.
Urban. Hypothetically speaking, just with the Toledo, everyone sharing stories about Toledo is just kind of funny. But I mean, hypothetically, Nick Saban calls you for a job now. Why would you hire him? What impresses you about him in that situation? I mean, what most impresses you as him as a coach? About him as a coach, Nick Saban.
Nick Saban?
Yeah.
Well, his one-loss record and championships, and like I said, from start to finish and A to Z, and trying to expose weaknesses in a program. That's what you try to do, whether it be recruiting weaknesses, whether it be fundamental issues on defense or offense or kicking game, and A to Z, they're good, and they're not the only program that's good, but they're very good. And that's we're the one thing about our profession, it's very evaluation friendly. It's either good or it's bad. Mediocre that falls in the bad category. So it's either good or bad, and obviously they're very good.
Back to the left side, front row, Ray.
Urban, how
left coach.
How strong can you get into the South in Georgia and Florida recruiting? How much real push is there when the heart of your team is Ohio, but what's your recruiting focus in the South?
We have great respect for the South. The transition of player from for example, the state of Georgia. When I first started recruiting, it's always been very good, but it's hard to say that's not as good as high school footballers in America. And a lot of that's because of the population shift. It's the size of the high schools, and I always look at the coaching. And Ohio's always had one of the top 2-3 states in America as far as quality coaching. So that's why Ohio players have done so well. So we're going to swing as hard as we can in the South. And we've, Raekwon McMillan, Von Bell, Joey Bosa, Johnny Dixon's going to be fine player. He's hurt right now. We had Ryan Shazier, Bradley Roby, Cameron Haywood. So there's a nice tradition of Southern players doing great in Ohio. We have excellent facilities. Players come up there and see that as far as football is concerned, you're the only show in town, and you're going to play in front of the largest crowd in America every year. So there's a nice pull from. The only thing you deal with is distance, and then every once in a while you get a little bit of weather, but not often.
Coach, we'll go back to the other side here, second row.
Urban, how do you prepare a team to come down and play in New Orleans, which has a little more distractions than some of the other bowl cities, and how much more difficult has that become, say, in the last 2-3 years with the explosion of social media?
Well, I think it's an issue. It depends on your team and depends on the maturity of your team. I have one of our captains got up yesterday, and Curtis Grant said I need to talk to the team, and afterwards he said something about we're all in tonight and we're all. So we got a couple movies for him. Each team's different, but that's something we're certainly aware of. You have more player relations guys on your staff that watch. We study social media of every one of our players. We study social media of every one of our recruits because we all know one bad day or one bad evening can really impact a program and certainly impact that player's life. So we really watch out for that. But that's a great question. It's something we just are very, very focused on. But it depends on obviously the person and the team you have.
Other questions for Coach Meyer? Got one, Ray? Hang on, Ray. Ray, we'll get a mic to you. Sorry.
You got to get these kids away from the Bermuda grass and 80 degrees. And do you sell them on it's a 40-year decision, not 4 years. What's your recruiting pitch to these Florida and Georgia guys?
Well, it depends on the guy. You know, for Raekwon McMillan, the best thing that he meshed so quickly with a guy named Ryan Shazier and Curtis Grant, and became part. You know, he came up on his visit. I remember we had a meeting scheduled. I was going to meet with him, and I walk in the locker room and see him hang out with him, and I canceled my meeting because it was more important to feel comfortable in that locker room. And so a lot of guys just that's where a lot of decisions are made on the culture and environment. So we really find out what kind of kid he is, and then Raekwon McMillan is very serious about school, very serious about leadership, very serious about. And we put him with a guy like Shazier and Curtis Grant, and I think that was the thing that sealed the deal. So each kid's different. You know, if you're worried about, you know, I want to play at South Beach or, like you said, something about Bermuda grass, and probably not going to get him. Not sure we want him, but probably not going to get him.
Other questions for Coach Meyer? Back over here to the right.
Urban, hi. Steve Greenberg from the Chicago Sun-Times. How close is Ohio State to, you know, where it can get, where you want it to get? How good of a representation is this team right now in that regard?
It's okay. It's not. We have a long ways to go still. You know, I like the direction when you look at the young players playing for us. You know, I thought I made the comment that I still thought we were a year away. You know, when I started seeing some, you know, when they had a couple injuries and I just started seeing freshmen, sophomore, freshman, and they're in those key positions that usually when those guys become juniors, that's when you start to make a nice swing at it. So we're close, but we're not there yet.
Front row right. Go ahead, Ted.
How do you feel like you've evolved as a head coach, particularly after taking a year off? What are the things that you feel like you stress and feel are important as a head coach for yourself as a head coach now that maybe you didn't realize earlier?
Oh, probably appreciation to you know, the opportunities, and then also, you know, there's a, you know, Todd Blackledge and I had a lot of, and he's a guy I just saw him a minute ago. He's a great friend, and we've had many conversations, and it's about the why you got into coaching, and what's the, you know, to see. I'm looking over there, Cardell Jones, and he's got microphones in front of him and talking about being a quarterback. That's the why, and so I learned to really appreciate that, and then that's probably that's why I got into it 20-some years ago. And maybe I don't want to say you lose focus, but there's a tendency, the human element gets involved, and you start become so hard-driven that you forget the why. So that's probably the biggest difference.
We'll switch sides on the back row.
Urban, back in Chicago, way before the season even started, I think you'd mentioned one of the mottos for this team was, I think it was Band of Brotherhood or something along that.
Brotherhood of Trust.
Brotherhood of Trust.
Yeah.
And you look at everything that you guys have had to go through this year, the adversity you had to overcome, losing a team member. You look back on that, a little bit prophetic that you guys came up with that motto?
Probably an appropriate term, pretty deep term. But we started leadership training a year ago. Tim Kite, a very good friend of mine, and one of the best things I think we did is we put our coaching staff through about a month and a half. You know, we had a good team last year, went 12-0, won 24 straight, and still I didn't feel it. I didn't feel there's something missing. And our goal and our dream is we always talk about 9 units strong. There's 9 different units, 9 position coaches, and if you're operating on 5 out of 9, 6 out of 9, you'll beat teams you're better than. But what happened last year, we got one as good as we were, and we failed because a couple units didn't play very well. And the common excuse is our players aren't good enough, maybe an injury. The good thing that I think we've eliminated there's no excuses in this program, none. And it started with the unit leaders. So we trained our unit leaders that it's not your knowledge of the game. When you get to this level, everyone's got very good knowledge. That 18-year-old's got to trust you, or that kid won't walk across the street for you now. Maybe 25 years ago he would because you're the coach. It's a different era. And so what a great question, and there's no doubt that the investment into that is paying off, because our coaches, we're not even called unit leaders, had a heck of a year. They've done a good job. The units that maybe were the weakest a year ago might be the strongest. And you can say, well, they're better players. No, they're not. We lost a first rounder in one of the units named Ryan Shazier. Yet that unit's is operating on very, very high capacity right now. I felt it. No. That's all. Each game's a different game. Each Monday, each Tuesday is a different Tuesday. You're dealing with 18 to 20-year-olds, and you're dealing with 45-year-old coaches. So we were 9 units strong in Indianapolis, and we'll have to be 9 units strong to have a shot at this one.
Back over to the right side, back row.
Urban, Jerry Ahern from USA Today Sports. Several of the recent title games have come down to a kick. Can you talk a little bit about Sean's development and how ready he is for this big moment?
Yeah, we're trying to accelerate the development. He's a true freshman. He's a great dude. He's a great guy. He's talented. He's got a tendency to poke at it instead of follow through with it, so we're working really hard at it. I have confidence with him up to certain, 42 yards. At some point at Ohio State, you need confidence from 48 in, and it's not there yet. It's getting close because he had a good week. He's got to have. Today's actually a Thursday practice, so he has to have a great day today. But he's got a chance to have a great career at Ohio State.
Got 2 on each side here, front row. Go ahead.
Urban, maybe an oddball question, but does that Alabama-Notre Dame championship game inform your preparation in any way? The way Alabama just jumped on them on both sides, and it was kind of over early. And
a couple years ago, maybe.
Yeah,
I was there for that. Yeah, that was. I used it with our team. The one thing I thought Alabama did very well is they played with their hands. I watched their warm-ups, and we've instilled a few drills, and we call it the difference in our program now that we started. Coach Ash and myself have been fanatical about the use, because there's playing with leverage and get your hands inside. I thought when I just watched them warm up and played, I thought obviously great players and all that, but fundamentally they were very good. If you watch our film from that year or from our beginning till now, we're much better with our hands because we work so hard at it. So that's probably the biggest impact I noticed in that game. And I know it was, you say, did that play that much of a difference? It certainly did in that game.
Across the aisle, front row.
Urban, the game, back to the game in the desert. You were playing an unbeaten #1 team in the country that year. And frankly, you were a major underdog, about as big an underdog as you can get.
06?
Yeah, 06, yeah. I don't know if you're as big an underdog this year, but given your experience in that game and how you prepared your team for a very daunting task, is there something you can use from that night and that week that you can apply here?
Well, I think each team's different. You have to get the pulse of your players, your pulse of your team. That was a very angry team. That was a team that had an incredible group of leaders, like Brandon Seiler. I go back to him, and incredible leader, a guy that was an angry. They came to Florida to win a championship, never did it, and that we won the SEC championship, and you could just kind of stoke the fires because I could try to maybe throw some things out there and find out what sticks, and that was a very angry team. And so we used every angle possible with that you shouldn't be here, and a lot of it was true, a lot of it was made up, but we did what we had to do to get a bunch of 18-year-olds to play hard.
Going to the back, same side. Go ahead, sir.
Coach Meyer, to go back to the 9 position unit coaches, you have some vacancies coming up. At what point do you look to start filling those? The Tom Herman quarterback coach position, co-offensive coordinator, and who's kind of on your dream team list, being one of the original coaches that you brought with you to Ohio State?
I've already started the process of putting candidates. We're not going to change. Our offense started in 2001, and so we have to make sure that the person comes in and it's not going to change. We call it enhance it. So I want to hire someone that's going to enhance. We're not, like I said, this will be, I think, my 6th coordinator. The way we do business, it's not a dictatorship. I call a bunch of the plays. We have a run, co-coordinator. I like to have the co-coordinator. Ed Warner's done a really good job for us. So we're going to mesh as #1, and what can he bring to the table? And it has to be a great recruiter. Those are all things I'm looking at. And there's 3 or 4 guys we're looking at already for that spot.
Coach, we're going to go back to the right side, second row.
Coach, Darren Lee and Curtis Grant said the captains came to you wanting to change curfew, 10 o'clock. Was that kind of music to your ears? You appreciate that kind of leadership? What does that say to you?
Curtis Grant is, I'm looking at Cardell Jones. Curtis Grant falls in the same category, one of the great turnarounds. And he never was a bad guy, but he wasn't a purpose-driven team guy. Last year, I was very upset with him. He didn't even, I'm sure he didn't play in the game if he didn't play much, and then he wasn't even involved in the special teams. This year, it's hard to say he's not our best leader. He's a guy that, what a future he has. And so, yeah, he grabbed me by the arm before practice and said, I got something to say after practice, and grabbed the guys. And you know, the good thing is there's no issues anyways, but he said, we're all together tonight. And I'm sitting there and your heart starts pumping a little bit, and you're like, that's what this is all about. Selfless approach and leaning on each other. That's why this team's where it's at. This team's probably a year ahead of schedule, and it's because of the closeness, and the guys play real hard for the guy next to them. So that was, to put your terms, that was very good music to my ears.
We're inside 14 minutes, so we're getting close to the end, but we obviously have time for a few more questions. Go ahead, front row here.
Urban, with your experience at Florida and the 2 national championships, I mean, what can you take from that experience and your coaching style and bring it in here to this season with the playoff and kind of all that's surrounding it? Well,
those 2 championship teams were, if you say they're the closest teams you've ever had. My first year at Bowling Green was incredible. That team, and I think we're 8-3, but I mean they went from 1-10, I think, to 8-3, and that was only because of the closeness of that team. And then the 06, 08, the 04 the 04 undefeated team at Utah was like that, extremely close. And this team rivals that. They're right there. So those are, and I've shared that with them. I don't try to talk about other teams often, but when you have, one of the great ways to teach is to use examples. And Ryan Stamper is on my staff here. He was a captain of that team, the 08 team, and he'd be the first one to tell you that, yeah, we had some very good talent. But there's a lot of teams with good talent that fail. And so that the chemistry and the closeness of that team was the biggest thing what I learned from those teams. Not that I taught them, that we learned from those teams.
Other questions for Coach Meyer? Let's get a mic to you, second row.
We were talking to Luke yesterday, and he was talking. We were asking him about uncomfortable conversations with you, and he said, "Oh yeah, there's," and he's good with that. He says that's what makes you better. But I mean, are there a lot of those? I mean, is that what kind of drives coaches, players, and everything? I mean, is it all? Do you have to kind of go against the comfort level sometimes? A lot of times.
That's a great question. I guess I was raised differently. That It's funny how uncomfortable it's called honest, where I was, honest. I guess in this world of nonsense, hey buddy, how's it going? Well, I don't say that a lot. It's here's what we need to. We have a job to do. We're not very good at this. Our pass defense is abysmal. We need to get that fixed. If that's uncomfortable, then what do you want me to lie to you? Say, hey boy, how's it going? And boys, everything's going good. So I guess in this generation or whatever, when you hear the word uncomfortable, I'm not maybe I like to use the term honest. And we have a job to do, a very important job, and we have to get better in certain areas. So Luke's not, there's always we can do better. And the one thing I admire about Luke Fickell is he's a very honest guy too. That's why we probably get along so well. And he has a very good understanding of, what we're trying to get done. He's got a tremendous love for Ohio State and knows that he's a very driven guy now. He's a very, pride's not the right word, but he takes great, he takes great pride in being the best he can be.
Other questions for Coach Meyer? We have about 10 minutes left. Come back here to the front row.
Are you, just as far as your emotional process, I don't know if there's one you go through before every really big game or every game for that matter, but, are nerves, anxiety, fear part of it, or is it more about confidence building or calm? Like, how would you describe your mindset?
Well, my own personal one is you're just a burning desire to make sure that kid walking down those stairs right there is ready. And it's our job to put him in, we call competitive excellence at Ohio State, that there's not a situation that doesn't show up that he's not had that rep. That's the thing that drives it's always driven me is that whether it be a special team, whether it be a offense, defensive snap, that's why we're so meticulous and you can say inside out, upside down, that we try to cover every, and of course one or two things are going to show up, but I like to think against Wisconsin, every situation that we presented, it kind of played out. Now that we have a month to prepare for each other, it's a little more difficult getting ready for this one because there's more time for the opponent. Where if it's a week, usually you can get them ready, but there's so much inventory that we have to get ready. So that's what drives us. You said the anxiety or the nervous or the fear. It's what drives us is not the stage, not the importance of the game. It's just making sure that those players are ready to play at competitive excellence, and that's the most difficult thing the coach has to do, is make sure that kid has had that rep in practice.
Other questions? We'll get a mic to you.
Urban, I'm wondering, if I were to tell you guys look a lot like Oregon a lot of the time, you guys have had some cross-pollination, right? Can you discuss some of that and where that came from and how much you think you are similar to them?
Sure. I've always had a great relationship from Rich Brooks to Coach Bellotti to Chip Kelly. Oregon's always been kind of a school that I've looked at. Chip Kelly and I are very close, and I went out there the year that we were unable to play in the 12-0 year, and I went out to the bowl game, watched them practice, spent time with them, and brought a lot of things back. I think they're cutting edge. I think they play fast and hard. You know, their defense doesn't get near their credit. I don't even know statistically, but the year I went out there and watched Coach Aliota, who's a friend of mine too, I went back and said, you know, everybody talks about the shovel passes, or it's not that. There's a culture out there that has been started, and Chip Kelly, Coach Helfrich has done an amazing job. I don't know him real well. I have a lot of respect for him, and Coach Frost. But Chip Kelly, when I went out there, I brought back with me that there's an incredible culture, that this is the way they do their business, and everyone's aligned, and I brought that back to our place.
Right side here, standing. Go ahead.
Hi there. Hey, Urban. A question about the Chase banner up in the Woody. The team adopted that last year and has maintained that through the year. The banner still stands. Just a thought on how that applies. Your players still talk about that, the way that message applies to everything in their life, how they can apply it here in this environment, the way it can motivate them to do some great things.
Great question. That came on about the third quarter of the Alabama-Notre Dame game. I was sitting there on the set watching it and looking at the pageantry of the game, and I just, we're all chasing something. And that moment, I know if the players were here, if somehow I could get them all here, fly them down to that moment, motivation would be very easy. Taking care of your business, going to class, handling your stuff, lifting weights, running, mat drills would be zero. Motivation would not be an issue. But somehow in that 18-year-old's head, how do you get them in that environment? And so that was our term, and I sent out an email that night and said we're chasing some things, and it's ironic we took it down because we're chasing a Big Ten championship, and they did it. So we all signed it, and I just think that was a great code word that our players adopted.
Coach Meyer, Jeff Hireman.
Thanks,
here.
guys. Have a great day.
No. Where's the clock? You have 6 minutes and 20 seconds left. So obviously being here before Coach Meyer, just let us know a little bit about New Orleans and some of the things you've been able to do, and some of your experiences here so far.
What are you doing?
It's so funny.
Okay, New Orleans is a great city. We've had a great time, and most importantly, our players have had a great time and behaved. Right?
Yeah, definitely. So going into this game, you've obviously we've had a lot of practices, and so what's the practice schedule look like today?
Full pads, inside drill, and just typical Thursday.
Okay. And tell me a little bit more about how you feel about this team and some of the guys on the team, especially in the tight end room and the one tight end, and what your thoughts on him?
Oh, I love our one tight end. Jeff Hireman has turned out to be a great player, great leader for us. And other than the fact he's sitting there asking me questions, for the most part, I've always got along real well with him. So, other than right now.
Yeah. What about that offer that must have gotten lost in the mail when I was in high school?
For those of you who didn't know, Jeff was from Naples, Florida, and I was the head coach of Florida, and he came up to a recruiting visit. I never even said hello and shook his hand because he was far too slow to play for us. And
Very true.
It turned out that I'm very glad he's a Buckeye now. And he has gotten faster and stronger.
Thanks to you and Coach Mick.
Yeah.
All right, Coach Meyer. Have a great day.
Thanks. Thanks, tight end.
All right, thanks, Jeff.